The tough part about a little maple spoon like this is the concave part. I first used a rotary tool, which is essentially a little drum sander, to dig it out, and then to smooth it out, I used this. With gentle curves like this has, when you're using a drum sander, the edge part of it has a tendency to dig. And a flap sander like this doesn't do that so much. It's softer. Well, this turned out to work a lot better than I thought, so let's call this a prototype, and in this video we'll make a new one really quickly. After many years of oppression, my people developed a saying, and that saying is, your flap sander is only as good as the sandpaper that you put in it. I'm not one to endorse a product, but this stuff is the bee's knees. It's 100 grit, it's cloth-like, and it lasts as long as anything. So I'm using a 1/4 sheet of sandpaper. Along the short dimension, I'm going to divide it into 4 parts. This is 4 1/2, so that will be 1 1/8. Along this long dimension, I'm just going to mark 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. These 1-inch pieces can be cut. These little pieces can also be cut now on the lines. And while we're here, you can measure out a 4-inch piece of 1/4-inch rod. I've got them all stacked and facing in the same direction, and hopefully I don't put one in backwards this time. A junky glue gun like mine slips right here when I pull the trigger, and that's typically because the glue sticks are so smooth. So I like to take a piece of 100 grit sandpaper and rough up that smooth surface on every single one I use. I won't lie to you, this part's confusing. You have to do the rotation in your head. So in case you can't make it out on video, this is the abrasive side here, and this is the abrasive side here. And the reason for that is because of the way that it rotates. The secret to using hot glue is heat. If this post is nice and warm, it will take the glue a little bit longer to cool down, but it will give us a stronger overall bond. Right now we're looking at abrasive side down. This next group I'm going to do a little bit differently. The glue's right along the spine, and I'm sticking it in between at about 45 degrees. You can really use either side. The cloth side or the abrasive side. They're both really irregular surfaces, so the glue will grab in either case. At this point we have 8, and so I'll add another set of 4 right here. If you look at the first set that we did, it's now the shortest, so we can put another one between the 2 sets that we just did, right here. I don't know if you'll be able to notice it in the footage or not, but I did put one backwards. Excuse me, I'm getting tired. If you do it, you can just pull apart the pedals next to the offending pedal and just hit it with a heat gun. It'll pull right out and you can flip it right back around. It actually worked pretty well. If you can see this, here I'll give you a close-up. I marked with marker on the top edges of the first 4 that I did, and that gives me a better understanding of what's going on here. If you look in between these 2, there's 2 pieces, and there's 3 spaces. So we can put 3 additional pedals in, and we'll call that done. The prototype had just 4 more pedals than this one. 3 more to go. Here, here, and here. And I must say, it's a good idea to mark the first 4, because then you just have to count. You should have 5 in between each of the red pedals. Whoops. That is easy to do. These are a bunch of mountain bike inner tube rubber bands linked together. And the long cord came from an old vacuum cleaner. Here we have a rather typical bandsaw cut, and this cove would be a pain to sand normally. Here's the finished thing, and you might be tempted to go around and cut all these feathers so that they're uniform in size, or so that they fall into their correct order. But I don't really see a point in doing so, because as it wears, it just naturally sort of happens. It just finds a natural round in use. The glue is pretty tough stuff, so I don't really expect to lose any. If one does go flying off, they're pretty easy to replace. This clip is playing in real time just because I want you to understand what it does and if it's worth your time to make this. I think it's worth making. I think it works surprisingly well, given that it's only hot glue. It seems to be really rugged. It works a lot better if you press down. It seems that you have to apply considerable pressure, which kind of is counterintuitive because I'm so used to using a hole saw. Also, note right here that I'm using it at an angle, and that's a lovely feature. So, conclusions. It's great. You gotta do it. It's easy to do. Doesn't take much time. The materials are dirt cheap, and it looks as though it'll last quite a long time. The thing that I like the most is that you can dig into your cove at about a 45-degree angle, and there's just no burn whatsoever, no mark like a drum sander would make. So definitely a cool thing to add to your inventory. Hope you enjoyed this. I'll see you later. Oops. Good thing I have extras. Wait a second, I was right the first time.